Once upon a time, in a distant land, there stood a single eager hunter at the edge of the forest.
Because there's no one else in my area doing puzzles with me!
With only my wits and internet access for requesting hints, I head to the forest, wishing to do magical puzzles there in Top 15 Puzzles I Did in Huntinality 3!
But first, I'm picking a quick snack. Starting my list with a series of equations with 11 variables represented as fruit in fruit math. I sort of approached suspecting that the values would be whole numbers from 1 to 26 before seeing an equation that can confirm whole number answers. Now in any other league, the focus is more solely on the math rather than the fruit. And for some, this is kinda intentional, if not desired. But there's more to our value than what's on the test. And in the puzzle hunting world, I get more into the stories for the answer word or phrase. That's why I thought about 1 to 26, as I can do A1Z26 to get Suika fruit, right before my church started. I played Suika before and got the watermelon, so I knew that the gimmick involves combining and ordering fruits. And after hearing someone rap an Advent reading, I got to work looking up the fruits while a friend came to watch. This simple premise combined with our common Suika experience made a nice introduction to the world of puzzle hunting, which gets more wild as the hunt goes on. I mean, look at the headlines! I got a copy of the Semi-Times to read front and center, but the headlines kinda fell apart. With so many letters used, I just got bits and pieces. Though I saw star rats, and then the title, Semi-Times. Now I know I gotta make those palindrome headlines. The nice thing about them looking the same front and back is that every word found can give a hint for the next word until I reach the center. On to the next puzzle! But I'm getting more and more lost as the hunt goes on. I mean, one time I have to navigate locales of Tears of the Kingdom and a bunch of other games I'm not experienced with. Though on the Zelda side, I was able to get a better footing in Link's final stand. We've seen Link take on Ganondor's many forms, from the pig to the Calamity and even the Suavemente. But now we have even more forms to defeat. At least we're getting some rewards, but after finding some of them, I found I confused them together to form a new word to get the Ultra Hand when battling one of Ganondorf's forms. This kinda creates a cycle I can ascend. But without all the rewards found, I'm only working with the phrases in part. Still, I can recall Nutramatic as a fill-it-in finisher. But getting lost isn't the only curse I got. Upon completing the sing-along prologue of Into the Woods, I've encountered a witch! Uh-oh. She chants an incomprehensible incantation and waves a wand, and before I know it, I just can't seem to summon a... Alright, where are we again? While making my way through the forest, I chanced upon a suspicious-looking hut. That's gotta be the abode of the witch. Maybe I can get information on the spell itself, like how much the witch must have been working out. How many reps? Well, enough phrases to fit for 6 comments over her at the gym. These phrases are part of a mini-meta round, where some of the phrases are grouped via shared mechanics to extract a sub-answer phrase before the final answer phrase. The first one I got was the Do-Re-Mi workout song right off the scale thanks to the first letters, equal length, and eigenletter positioning, but finding the rest was trickier. For one sub-puzzle, I can definitely spot the substring mi in some of the phrases and order them up, but there's also the almost anagrams I have to account for. And for another sub-puzzle, it took a while to identify phrases with medals, but even longer to find the letter sandwich between the periodic table abbreviations. I was able to get a connection with the sub-puzzle answers for US state nicknames, and I like how the seemingly gym-based question turned out to be for US state representatives. Now speaking of metas, in the words of puzzle writer Darren Lee, no fairy tale is complete without some storybook critters, and we got an entire round based off that. But with some of them getting cursed, the creatures meta puzzle would involve working with the animals to see who can undo the curse. I really mean working with the animals, as all the feeder answers in the round are animals, and each of the animals can have an adjective that fits with the clues. However, I only have 4 animal answers identified from feeder puzzles and even fewer adjectives identified from them. But there's also the letters and the enumeration blanks that match each adjective, and with all 26 letters represented, we're creating a substitution cipher. The limited feeders mean there's only so far I can go at first, but I can pull out Neutramatic and make use of the limited pool of unused letters from the substitution cipher to help search adjectives with rarer letters. This not only got me more adjectives in the final answer, but also a backstall feeder answer, allowing me to bypass one of the longer puzzles of the round. I'm set to continue the investigation. Another sighting at the witch's hut are, well, sets of Magic the Gathering cards. There are quite the number of card sets, but with the copy to clipboard, I can isolate the important sets per card, like how the blanks for the upper 4 lead to white of the black. As for the rest of the card sets, upon seeing the numbered icons, I knew that this would rip from the card game set. The goal is to find a set of 3 cards such that for each attribute they all match or are all different. It was kind of fun finding the sets, and I even later found that each set has exactly 1 shared attribute, but it turns out that these set of attributes led to an actual Magic the Gathering card. Then our work is getting longer! Throughout the hunt, I've encountered 3 massive crossword puzzles, and of the 3, I had the best shot at one of them. Long Cube. Unlike the other 2 crosswords, this one had way more clues at 80 clues total and didn't even provide the grid. However, all of the clue answers are 4 letters long, effectively narrowing the search space and the grid formation. And I also found that I'm assembling a long cube, which is basically a rectangular prism where the length is twice as long as the width. Once I got all the grids filled, it's time to assemble them. A mixture of the figure diagrams and tape markings allow me to make a net of the prism. But I still need to get an answer word or phrase from that, and it turns out these figure diagrams also serve as a way to extract letters. So that's the Trial of Silence, where there's not even a word for that. Literally. Unlike most other puzzles, we're not inputting final answer phrases until the meta, but that made for some very unique gimmicks that get revisited in the meta, especially with how they are incorporated. Now let's finish the hunt. Eventually, I found clue answers throughout the witch's hut and lay them all at the transmutation station. Every combination of spells is binding me to that curse, and I really mean it with 5 ways to pick the first spell, 4 ways to pick the second spell, and cutting it in half for overcounting for 5 choose 2 equals 10 spells, 1 for each mushroom feeder answer. And these spells are based on transformations to feeder phrases, some of which were easy to see, like how stabs become tab after removing the edges, which become caps lock after looking down on a keyboard, or how Mew becomes Omicron after following a sequence, which becomes Micro after some trimming. However, I only have 4 of the spells, and the arrangements took quite a while to figure out, especially after realizing that Pakistan, the country after going south from Afghanistan, is actually an acronym representing the various names of the land. Probably my favorite new thing I've learned in the hunt. After getting through yet another romance-themed puzzle, I was able to find that the last transformation involved taking the antonym, allowing me to finish the grid and get 5 more phrases. Looks like something to apply more transformations, but even using November after transforming from Kilo got me stuck, even with new traumatic. But I later realized I should transform again to get February, as I'm ultimately applying the transformations twice, including the clever take on getting South Platte to Missouri by going downstream rather than south. And upon soloing my favorite meta puzzle of the hunt, I found that just like those answers, I needed to recurse myself. Now with the knowledge and the tools, I got the reverse curse technique like in Jujutsu Kaisen to undo the curse and later retrace every crazy and haphazard step out of the woods. After all, retracing steps to where I began can help me find my way upon getting lost. But there's 3 more puzzles within the woods that I really liked. Before my top picks, some honorable mentions. Characters. Nice first puzzle that I did. The bakery. Making groups with a little extra. Information relay. Splitting and considering game theme clues was really nice, even if the answer is hard to hear. 3 parts. Just like the mushroom puzzles, getting the answer was easy to put together. Black or white. Cryptics are much easier when they are in one piece. And keep out. I like how they use Pac-Man and Dragon Ball to describe safety signs. And finally, my 3 favorites. It's a really close call, so I start with my experiences in unlock order. First up is Twisty Path. It started off with some clue solving, and I can see how the clue answers have length 6, with 3 of them being NESW, fitting for directions. But I still need them, as some clues are tricky to find. I later set my eyes on the grid and sensed some path tracing. The emojis tripped me up as I tried splitting the words into thirds, but I later found my bearing with the directions. And this twisty path, along with new dramatic, allowed me to solve the rest of the clues and incorporate the emojis in the process. Still, I needed to get the final answer phrase, but there were 2 brilliant aha moments. One on how each row had 3 compass emojis that correspond uniquely, and another on how the clue answers are visited in order when traversing the grid. Next up is Hot Pot. I saw a lot of food pairings as well as some peculiar clue phrases. Got to work identifying, including splitting the clues to see rhyming pairs, just like Hot Pot. Moreover, the first letters of the rhymes matched that of the foods. Using the food in conjunction with the rhymes back and forth came in handy for some of the trickier identification, like Discord Lord being a clever answer for King of the Voice channels. Then I saw how the ingredients can be grouped into 3 categories, which later got me to see how most of the answers not only have the same length, but have only a few eigenletter positioning to pull from. That led to 3 more phrases, but the aha on using first letters from the soups made for a brilliant finish. And finally is Bird Conundrum. Just need to follow the directions, but every minute the bird letter changes and the ones I get sometimes just don't work. But after minutes of reloading pages, I can identify bird group names that the letters can be derived from. Still, by seeing length 4, 6, 7, 10, and 11 names, the period from the least common multiple turned out as 77 hours. No way I can check them all reasonably, but even through the instructions say not to look at future steps, that's the very strategy I can use to work backwards, like starting with all possible states that border the Atlantic and undoing transformations until I get candidate states. Surprised at the number of states I can go to another state when states are shifted. As I often say, I like puzzles that I can solve. And soloing all 3 of these massive puzzles were such a wonder that deciding my favorite is an incredibly close call. Bird Conundrum got the bronze with the incredible logic deduction and casework skills put to the test. But the 2 wordplay puzzles got an edge from a mixture of more clever thinking needed and more elegant setups. Not to mention how getting lost and getting food hit home with me. As for which wordplay puzzle, I'm giving the silver to Twisty Path and the gold to Hot Pot. Arguably, it could go either way, but the rhyming phrases gave it a bit more opportunity to clever aha moments. And that concludes my story at Huntinality 3. And much like the original play, my wish for seeing and showing awesome puzzles is not without its consequences. Like my curse of getting lost as a lonely one-man army. The hardest part is dealing with the sheer scale of some of the puzzles. But as I worked extensively to deal with my lonely curse, the meta-solving experience really shined, especially with all the back-solving. But turns out there were other hunters in my area, which I only found out after getting into the woods. And the witch knew that what those puzzles are about and set up the curse knowing I could handle them. Shout out to Cardinality for the mystical story, and for viewers like you, thank you.